My name is Grace. I am 34 years old, and I cannot remember the last time I finished a cup of coffee while it was still hot. I work from home now, half for 3 years, since our daughter Mia was born. It seemed like the practical choice at the time, a solution that would allow me to keep my job as a graphic designer while still being present for our child. Noah's commute to the engineering firm downtown was an hour each way, so it made sense. I would stay home. I would be the one available. What I didn't understand then was that available would become my entire identity. The alarm doesn't wake me anymore because I never sleep deeply enough for it to matter. I'm awake before it goes off at 6, already running through the mental inventory of everything that needs to be done today. Mia's breakfast, the client presentation that's due by noon, the laundry that's been sitting in the dryer for 2 days, the kitchen floor that's sticky with something I can't identify, the bills piled on the counter, the grocery list that keeps growing, the mess that never, ever goes away no matter how many times I clean it. I slide out of bed carefully, trying not to disturb Noah, though he sleeps so heavily that a freight train couldn't wake him. His side of the bed is a tangle of sheets and blankets he's kicked off during the night. My side is neat, barely disturbed, because I spent most of the night lying rigid and awake, my mind cycling through tasks and worries and resentments I can't silence. The house is cold. It's November in Seattle, and the heating system makes strange rattling noises that Noah keeps saying he'll look at, but never does. I pull on my robe, threadbare at the elbows, something I've been wearing for 6 years, and tie my hair back without looking in the mirror. I don't want to see myself anymore. Don't want to confront the woman who looks back at me with tired eyes and a permanent crease between her eyebrows from constant worry. Our house is a 3-bedroom craftsman in a neighborhood we could barely afford. It seemed charming when we bought it 4 years ago. Original hardwood floors, built-in shelving, a modest backyard where we imagined Mia would play. Now it just feels small, cramped, filled with too many people and too many things and not enough space for me to breathe. I move through the morning routine automatically. Start the coffee maker, let out Pepper, the aging beagle we've had for 8 years, who moves slower now and has accidents in the house that I'm always the one to clean up. Unload the dishwasher that I loaded last night after everyone else had gone to bed. Wipe down the counters that are somehow already covered with crumbs and coffee rings and sticky spots. The sink is full of dishes. Again. Always again. Noah had a late night snack. Crackers and cheese from the evidence scattered across the cutting board he left on the counter instead of putting in the dishwasher that was right there, empty and waiting. There's a glass with an inch of milk in the bottom, a plate with crumbs, a knife with dried cheese stuck to it. He walked past the dishwasher, walked past the sink, set his dirty dishes on the counter, and left them for me to deal with. I wash them now, because leaving them feels like admitting defeat, because I can't work in a kitchen that looks like this, and because if I don't do it, no one will, and they'll sit there for days while Noah steps around them without seeing them, without registering them as his responsibility. The coffee finishes brewing. I pour myself a cup, add the small amount of cream we have left, need to buy more, add it to the list, and take exactly 3 sips before I hear Mia stirring in her room. 3 sips. That's what I get. I set the cup down and go to her. She's 3 years old, beautiful and demanding in the way all toddlers are. She's already calling for me before I open the door, that familiar cry of, "Mama! Mama!" that used to fill me with love and now mostly fills me with exhaustion. She needs to be changed, needs to be dressed, needs breakfast immediately because she's hungry. She's always hungry. Why didn't I anticipate that she'd be hungry? I change her diaper, help her pick out clothes, a battle because she wants to wear her princess dress, but it's too cold and we're staying home today. We negotiate down to her favorite purple leggings and a shirt with a cat on it. She's happy with this compromise. I've learned to pick my battles. Downstairs, I put her in her high chair and make breakfast. Oatmeal with banana slices because it's fast and she'll usually eat it. While it cools, I try to drink more of my coffee. It's already lukewarm. Noah comes down at 7:15, already showered and dressed in his work clothes, button-down shirt and slacks, hair still damp, smelling like the expensive cologne I bought him for his birthday that he barely thanked me for. He looks rested, alert, ready to face his day that has a beginning and an end, that happens outside this house in an office with other adults and lunch breaks and boundaries. He pours himself coffee, doesn't offer to make me his breakfast, even though I'm clearly in the middle of it, doesn't notice the dishes I've already washed, doesn't see me at all, really. Big day today, he says, checking his phone. Presentation to the board. Might be late getting home. Okay. What are you working on today? Branding package for that tech startup? Due by noon. He nods, barely listening, already scrolling through emails. That's good. Good money in that. The money I earn goes into our joint account, gets absorbed into our household expenses, groceries, mortgage, utilities, Mia's needs. I don't have a separate account anymore. Didn't see the point when we got married. Seemed unromantic, distrustful. Now I regret that choice with a sharp, bitter regret I can't voice. I feed Mia her oatmeal. Noah stands at the counter eating a protein bar and drinking his coffee, scrolling through his phone, existing in a bubble of calm while I manage a squirming toddler who's decided she actually hates oatmeal today and wants pancakes instead. Mia, you need to eat what Mama made. Pancakes! Want pancakes! We don't have time for pancakes. Eat your oatmeal. She throws her spoon on the floor. It lands with a clatter. Noah doesn't even look up. I retrieve the spoon, rinse it, give it back to her. Try again. She eats 3 bites under protest, then decides she's done. I don't have the energy to fight it. There are bigger battles ahead. Noah kisses the top of my head as he leaves, ruffles Mia's hair. Have a good day, ladies. Then he's gone. Out the door, into his car, off to his clean office and adult conversations and work that ends at 5:30. I'm left with the breakfast dishes and a 3-year-old and a workday that needs to happen alongside all the other invisible labor that never stops. I clean Mia up, clean the high chair, clean the floor around the high chair where she's dropped most of her breakfast, set her up with her toys in the living room, turn on a cartoon I've seen 400 times, and finally sit down at my makeshift desk in the corner of the living room to start work. My coffee is cold now. Stone cold. I drink it anyway because making a fresh cup means leaving my computer, and I've learned to steal work time in tiny increments to maximize every second before Mia needs me again. I open my design software and pull up the project that's due in 5 hours. I've been working on it for 2 weeks, fitting it in around everything else, and it's almost done, just needs final touches. Should take 2 hours of focused work. I get 20 minutes before Mia wants a snack. 15 minutes before she needs help with a toy. 10 minutes before she's fighting with Pepper over a stuffed animal. 5 minutes before she's demanding my attention for something that can't wait. This is my entire workday, fragmented, interrupted, stolen in pieces so small they barely count as time at all. I used to work in an office, used to have a desk and a door that closed and hours of uninterrupted concentration, used to produce my best work, creative work, work I was proud of. Now I produce functional work, adequate work, work that meets the deadline but doesn't exceed it because I don't have the mental space or energy for excellence anymore. My clients don't know this. They see the finished product and assume I'm working in a quiet studio somewhere, fully present and engaged. They don't see the toddler tugging at my sleeve, or the dog barking, or the laundry buzzer going off, or the constant endless interruptions that make every project take 3 times longer than it should. Noah doesn't understand this, can't understand it. When he comes home and I'm stressed about a deadline, he says things like, "But you've had all day to work on it." Like my day is empty time just waiting to be filled with tasks. Like I've been sitting here leisurely doing nothing. He doesn't see the invisible work, the mental load of remembering everything, planning everything, managing everything. The constant interruptions, the way my brain has to switch between being a mother and being a designer and being a household manager, never fully present in any role, always fragmented across all of them. I finished the project at 11:45, 15 minutes before the deadline. It's good enough. Not great, not my best work, but good enough, which is all I can manage anymore. I submit it and immediately start on the next project while I have momentum. Make it 40 minutes before Mia needs lunch. The kitchen is a disaster again. Noah's breakfast dishes have appeared. He must have come home during his morning break and eaten something and left evidence. A bowl in the sink, a spoon on the counter, crumbs everywhere. The milk left out on the counter, warming, probably ruined now. I put away the milk even though it might not be good anymore, because throwing away food feels like throwing away money we don't have extra of. Make Mia's lunch, mac and cheese from a box, the only thing she'll reliably eat. Feed her while standing at the counter, eating crackers over the sink because I forgot to make myself lunch again. The afternoon dissolves into more of the same. Work in fragments, clean constantly, manage Mia's needs and moods, try to keep the house from falling into complete chaos. Around 3 o'clock, my phone rings, Noah's name on the screen. "Hey," I answer, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder while I fold laundry. "So, I need to talk to you about something." Something in his tone makes me stop folding, sets off alarm bells I can't quite name. My mom called today. She's not doing well. Eleanor, Noah's mother, 72 years old, living alone in Spokane since Noah's father died 3 years ago. We see her twice a year, Christmas and her birthday. The visits are always strained. She's never liked me, never thought I was good enough for her son, never bothered to hide her disappointment that Noah married me instead of literally anyone else. "What do you mean not doing well?" "She's struggling, can't keep up with the house, having trouble with stairs. Her doctor says she shouldn't be living alone anymore." I know where this is going before he says it. Can feel the trap closing around me. "I think she should come live with us." There it is, the bomb he's just dropped into my already drowning life. "Noah, just temporarily, until we figure out something more permanent. She's my mother, Grace. I can't just leave her alone when she needs help." "We don't have room." "We have the spare bedroom. That's my office, where I work, where I earn money for our family. You can work at the dining room table or the living room. You're flexible." Flexible. That word he uses constantly. I'm flexible, which means I can absorb any change, any additional responsibility, any disruption to my already impossible life because I work from home, which means my work doesn't really count as work. When were you thinking? This weekend. I'm going to drive over and get her on Saturday. This weekend. 4 days away. He's not asking permission. He's informing me of a decision he's already made. We should have discussed this first. I'm discussing it now. No, you're telling me what you've already decided. Silence on his end. Then, "She's my mother, Grace. What do you want me to do? Put her in a home? She'd hate that. It would kill her." The guilt is thick in his voice, the manipulation so familiar I can see its shape. He's making this about morality, about being a good son, about family obligation. Any objection I raise will make me the villain, the daughter-in-law who doesn't care about her husband's elderly mother. How long is temporarily? I don't know. A few months? Maybe? Until we figure out her next steps. A few months. With the woman who's never liked me, in my house, requiring care and attention I don't have to give, while I'm already drowning. I need to think about this. There's nothing to think about. She's coming this weekend. I'll help. It won't be a big deal. He'll help. The promise he makes constantly and never keeps. He'll help with the dishes, with Mia, with the house, with everything. And then he doesn't, and it all falls to me. I have to go. Mia needs me. She doesn't really. She's playing contentedly with her blocks. But I need an escape from this conversation that's making my chest tight with panic. Okay, we'll talk more tonight. Love you. He hangs up before I can respond. I stand in my living room holding a basket of laundry, surrounded by the evidence of my already overwhelming life. Mia's toys scattered everywhere, dishes waiting to be washed, work that needs to be done, a house that's never clean no matter how much I clean it. And into this, Noah wants to bring his mother. His elderly, needy, demanding mother who will require care and attention and emotional labor on top of everything else I'm already doing. I sit down on the couch, still holding the laundry, and feel something close to despair wash over me. I can't do this. Can't add another person to this household, another set of needs to meet, another relationship to manage, another source of judgment and criticism and expectation. But I don't have a choice. Noah has already decided, already made plans, already positioned himself as the dutiful son, and me as the obstacle that needs to be managed around. Mia climbs onto my lap, pressing her small body against mine, sensing my distress in the way children do. Mama sad? Mama's just tired, baby. She pats my face with her small hands. It's okay, Mama. I hold her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling her warmth, and try to push down the rising panic. This is my life. This is what I signed up for when I married Noah, when I had a child, when I agreed to work from home and be the flexible one, the available one, the one who manages everything. And now it's about to get worse. Eleanor's coming this weekend, whether I want her here or not. The laundry basket tips over, spilling clothes across the floor. I don't have the energy to pick them up. I just sit there, holding my daughter, staring at the mess, feeling the weight of what's coming settle over me like a heavy blanket I can't throw off. 4 days. I have 4 days before my life becomes even more impossible than it already is. 4 days before I lose the last small space that was mine. 4 days before I become responsible for one more person in a household where I'm already disappearing under the weight of everyone else's needs. I close my eyes and try to breathe. Try to find some reserve of strength I can draw from. Try to believe I can handle this. But I can't find it. Can't believe it. All I can feel is the crushing weight of everything pressing down on me and the certain knowledge that it's about to get so much worse. Saturday came too quickly, like all dreaded things do. I spent the days between Noah's phone call and Eleanor's arrival in a state of numb preparation. Cleaning the spare bedroom that had been my office, my one space in this house that was mine. Packing up my desk, my supplies, my carefully organized files. Moving everything to the dining room table, where I'd now have to work surrounded by the chaos of the household, visible to everyone, interruptible at every moment. The room looked empty once I'd cleared it out. Sad somehow. I'd painted it a soft gray 2 years ago, hung shelves for my design books, positioned my desk by the window where the light was best in the mornings. It had been my refuge, the one door I could close when I needed to concentrate. Now it would be Eleanor's room. Noah helped me move furniture. His contributions consisted of carrying the bed frame up from the basement and assembling it while I did everything else. He didn't clean, didn't organize, didn't notice how much work was involved in transforming a functional office into a bedroom suitable for an elderly woman. "She's going to love it," he said, stepping back to admire the assembled bed like he'd accomplished something significant. "It's perfect." I'd made the bed with fresh sheets, placed a lamp on the nightstand, hung new curtains I couldn't afford. The room looked pleasant, welcoming, ready for someone who didn't want to be here and didn't want me as her caretaker. Noah left at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning for the 5-hour drive to Spokane. He'd be back in the late afternoon. I spent the day in anxious preparation, cleaning the house more thoroughly than I had in months, trying to make everything perfect, even though I knew it wouldn't matter. Mia sensed my tension and became clingy, whiny, difficult. She refused to eat lunch, had a meltdown over her favorite show ending, threw her toys when I asked her to help clean up. By 2 o'clock, I was exhausted, my nerves frayed, already regretting everything about this situation. I heard Noah's truck in the driveway at 4:30. My stomach clenched immediately. Through the window, I watched him help his mother out of the passenger seat. Eleanor moved slowly, carefully, one hand gripping Noah's arm while the other clutched a cane. She looked smaller than I remembered, frailer. Her hair was completely white now, cut short and curled close to her head. She wore a lavender cardigan and dark pants, sensible shoes. She looked like exactly what she was, a 72-year-old woman who needed help. I opened the front door as they approached, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "Eleanor, welcome. How was the drive?" She looked at me with those pale blue eyes that had always held judgment. Long. "I'm very tired." Not a greeting, not a thank you, just a statement of her condition that required my immediate attention and sympathy. Noah guided her into the house. "Let me show you your room, Mom. Grace fixed it up really nice for you." They went upstairs slowly, Eleanor leaning heavily on both the cane and Noah's arm. I watched them go, then returned to the truck to help with her belongings. There were 6 suitcases. 6! For a temporary stay of a few months. I carried them inside one by one while Noah stayed upstairs with his mother. My back ached, my arms burned. No one came to help. By the time I'd gotten everything inside, they were coming back down. Eleanor had changed into a different sweater, had freshened up, looked slightly less exhausted. She settled carefully onto the couch with an audible sigh. "Can I get you something to drink? Water? Tea?" "Tea would be lovely. With honey, please. And make sure the water is fully boiling, not just hot. I can always taste the difference." I went to the kitchen and made tea exactly as specified. Brought it to her on a tray with a small plate of cookies I'd bought specifically for her arrival. She took the cup, sipped, and made a face. "It's a bit weak. I can make you another cup." No, I'll manage." She set the cup down like it was a sacrifice she was willing to make. Mia had been watching from the hallway, shy and uncertain around this stranger in our house. Elamon noticed her finally. "Come here, child. Let me see you." Mia looked at me for permission. I nodded. She approached slowly. Eleanor's face softened in the way I'd never seen before. "Oh, aren't you precious? You look just like your daddy did at your age, same eyes. Come sit with Grandma." Mia climbed onto the couch beside her. Eleanor wrapped an arm around her, pulled her close, and for the first time since arriving, she smiled. A genuine, warm smile that transformed her face entirely. "We're going to be such good friends, you and I. I'll read you stories, we'll bake cookies together. Would you like that?" Mia nodded, already warming to her grandmother's attention. Noah watched this interaction with visible relief. "See? Everything is going to be fine. Mom, are you hungry? Grace can make dinner." Of course, Grace can make dinner. Grace, who'd been cleaning and preparing all day. Grace, who'd carried all the suitcases. Grace, who was already exhausted. "I'll start on that now," I said. In the kitchen, I pulled out chicken breasts to bake, started preparing vegetables, set water to boil for rice. Through the doorway, I could hear Noah and Eleanor talking, their voices warm and easy. Mia's occasional laughter, the sound of a family that didn't include me. I was the help, the servant who made things comfortable for everyone else. Dinner was ready by 6:30. I set the table, served everyone, finally sat down myself. My plate was the last one filled, the smallest portion, an old habit from ensuring everyone else had enough first. Eleanor ate slowly, carefully, making comments about the chicken being a bit dry, the vegetables needing more salt. Nothing outright cruel, just small corrections that established her authority, her standards, her right to criticize. Noah didn't seem to notice. He was too busy being attentive to his mother, asking about her health, her needs, what she required to be comfortable. Every question generated a long response full of details about medications, doctor appointments, dietary restrictions I'd need to accommodate. After dinner, Noah helped his mother back to the couch while I cleared the table. Mia wanted to help, but mostly just got in the way. I washed dishes alone in the kitchen, listening to the sounds of my husband entertaining his mother in the living room. No one offered to help. No one even came to check on me. By 8 o'clock, Eleanor announced she was tired and needed to rest. Noah helped her upstairs, got her settled, came back down 20 minutes later. "She's really grateful to be here," he said, collapsing onto the couch. "This is going to be good for everyone." I was putting away the last of the dishes, wiping down counters that would just get dirty again tomorrow. "She has a lot of requirements." "She's old, Grace, and she's not well. We need to be patient with her." Patient. Another word like flexible. Another expectation placed entirely on me. "I'm going to put Mia to bed," I said. The bedtime routine took 40 minutes. Bath, pajamas, teeth brushing, 3 books, 2 songs, endless requests for water and one more story, and just 5 more minutes, please, Mama. By the time she finally fell asleep, I was hollow with exhaustion. I came downstairs to find Noah already in bed, reading on his phone. The living room was a mess. Eleanor's teacup on the side table, Kerm's on the couch, her cane propped against the wall, magazines scattered across the coffee table. I cleaned it all up, washed the teacup, straightened the pillows, made the space presentable again. When I finally got to bed, Noah was asleep, phone still in his hand. I removed it carefully, plugged it in, turned off the light. Lay in the darkness, listening to the house settle, to the unfamiliar creaks of someone else moving around upstairs, to the sound of Eleanor's cough carrying through the walls. This was my life now, not just managing my household and my child and my work, now adding an elderly woman with needs and demands and expectations I'd somehow have to meet on top of everything else. I didn't cry. I was too tired even for tears. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I was going to survive this. Sunday morning, I woke to the sound of movements in the kitchen. Checked the clock. 6:15. Earlier than I usually got up on weekends. I pulled on my robe and went downstairs to find Eleanor already dressed and attempting to make coffee. She was moving slowly, fumbling with the machine, her hands shaking slightly. "Let me help you with that," I said. She startled, hadn't heard me coming. "Oh, I didn't want to bother anyone. I'm used to being up early." "It's no bother. Here, let me." I took over the coffee making while Eleanor settled at the kitchen table, watching me with those assessing eyes. "Noah is still asleep?" "Yes, he usually sleeps until 8 or 9 on weekends." "He always was a late sleeper, even as a boy." She paused. "You keep a very clean house." It didn't sound like a compliment, more like an observation that confirmed something she'd already suspected about me. Too focused on cleaning, perhaps? Too concerned with appearances? "I try. It's hard with a toddler. I raised 3 children and kept an immaculate home. It's about discipline and routine." There it was, the implicit criticism, the suggestion that if I just had more discipline, more routine, I wouldn't find this so difficult. I poured coffee for both of us, brought hers to the table with cream and sugar. She doctored it precisely, tasted it, nodded approval. We sat in silence for several minutes. Uncomfortable silence that I felt obligated to fill. "How are you feeling this morning? Did you sleep well?" "As well as can be expected in a strange bed. My back is bothering me. I'll need help with my medications after breakfast. They're very particular about timing." "Of course. Just let me know what you need." "There's quite a lot, I'm afraid. I wrote it all down." She pulled a folded piece of paper from her cardigan pocket and handed it to me. I unfolded it to find 3 pages of detailed instructions, medications with dosages and timings, dietary restrictions, physical limitations, things she needed help with, bathing, dressing, climbing stairs, appointments that would need to be scheduled, equipment that would need to be ordered. It was overwhelming. A complete manual for how to care for her, handed to me like it was now my job, my responsibility, my duty as the daughter-in-law. "This is thorough," I managed. "I don't want to be a burden. If everything is written down, it should be easy enough to manage." But it wouldn't be easy. Nothing about this would be easy. This was a part-time job disguised as family obligation, unpaid labor that would consume hours of my day every single day. "I'll do my best," I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sure you will, dear." The way she said dear felt condescending, like she was already preparing to be disappointed by my efforts. Noah came down around 9, cheerful and rested. He made himself breakfast, leaving the pan dirty on the stove, the egg carton out on the counter, crumbs scattered across the cutting board. Ate while scrolling through his phone, completely oblivious to his mother and me sitting at the table. "Morning, Mom. How'd you sleep?" "Well enough, sweetheart. Grace has been taking care of me." "That's great. See, Grace, I told you it would be fine." He finished eating, left his dishes in the sink, announced he was going to take Pepper for a walk, left without offering to help with Eleanor's medications or asking what I needed or acknowledging the 3 pages of instructions I was holding. Eleanor watched him go with a fond expression. He's always been such a good boy, so thoughtful, so caring. I said nothing, just sipped my coffee and wondered if we were looking at the same person. The rest of the day established a pattern that would become grimly familiar. Eleanor needed help with everything, but presented each need as a small, reasonable request. Could I help her with her medications? Could I make her a specific breakfast that required ingredients we didn't have, necessitating an unexpected grocery trip? Could I help her shower since she couldn't manage alone? Could I fluff her pillows, adjust her blanket, reach something from the closet, find her reading glasses, make her tea, answer her questions about the television remote? Each request individually was minor. Collectively, they consumed my entire day.
Noah helped exactly twice, carrying her laundry basket upstairs and fixing her television when she couldn't get the channel she wanted. Both tasks took less than 5 minutes total. The rest fell to me. I tried to work in stolen moments. Opened my laptop at the dining room table, only to be interrupted within minutes. Eleanor needed something. Mia needed something. The doorbell rang, the phone rang, Pepper needed to go out. Something was always pulling me away from my work, fragmenting my attention until I couldn't hold a coherent thought for more than 30 seconds. By evening, I'd accomplished almost nothing professionally. Had 3 client emails I hadn't answered, a project I was supposed to start that week still untouched, my carefully maintained schedule completely destroyed. Dinner was late because Eleanor had needed help with something right when I'd planned to start cooking. Noah complained about being hungry. Mia had a meltdown from being overtired. Eleanor made comments about dinner being rushed, the food not properly seasoned. I cleaned up alone again, gave Mia her bath alone, put her to bed alone, came downstairs to find Noah and his mother watching a movie together, comfortable and relaxed. "Join us," Noah said, not really meaning it. There was no space on the couch between them, no room for me in their dynamic. "I have work to finish." "On a Sunday night?" "Yes, Noah, on a Sunday night because I didn't get any work done today. That's not my fault." I didn't respond. Just went to the dining room, opened my laptop, and tried to salvage something from the wreckage of my day. Worked until midnight, while they watched television, while Noah made popcorn and left kernels scattered across the kitchen floor for me to clean up later. While Eleanor's laugh rang through the house at something funny in the movie, the sound incongruous with the tension I felt coiled in my chest. When I finally went to bed, Noah was already asleep. I lay awake for hours, mind racing with everything I hadn't accomplished, everything that would need to be done tomorrow, the impossible mathematics of fitting my existing responsibilities plus Eleanor's care into days that already weren't long enough. Monday morning, I woke exhausted. Got through the routine on autopilot. Breakfast, medications for Eleanor, getting Mia dressed and fed, cleaning up after everyone. Noah left for work at 7:30 with a cheerful goodbye, escaping into his orderly world while I remained trapped in chaos. I tried to work, sat down at the dining room table at 9 o'clock, determined to make progress on the project I should have started Friday. Eleanor came downstairs 20 minutes later. "Good morning, dear. Did you sleep well?" "Fine, thank you." She settled at the other end of the table with the newspaper, reading glasses perched on her nose. Her presence was immediately distracting. The rustle of pages, the small sighs and comments she made while reading, the way she cleared her throat repeatedly.
I tried to focus, made it 15 minutes before she spoke. "Grace, dear, could you make me some tea?" I saved my work, went to the kitchen, made tea. Returned to my computer, another 20 minutes of fragmented concentration. "Grace, I'm having trouble with the thermostat. It's quite cold in here." I adjusted the thermostat, checked on Mia, who was playing in the living room, sat back down. 10 minutes later. "Grace, could you help me find the remote? I want to watch my morning program." I found the remote, showed her again which buttons to use, returned to work. This continued all morning. Small interruptions every 10 to 20 minutes, each one destroying my concentration, pulling me out of the creative flow I needed for design work. By noon, I'd accomplished maybe 30 minutes of actual productivity. Eleanor never apologized for the interruptions, never seemed to consider that I was working. From her perspective, I was simply home, and being home meant being available. During lunch, which I made for everyone, of course, she asked about my work in a tone that suggested it wasn't quite real work. It must be nice to work from home, so flexible, so much easier than going to an office. It has its challenges. Oh, I'm sure. But at least you're here with Mia. That's what matters. Children need their mothers. The implication was clear. My work was secondary, a hobby really. Something I did in my spare time that shouldn't take precedence over my real responsibilities, caring for my family, now including her. That afternoon, while I was desperately trying to catch up on work, Eleanor called down from upstairs. Grace, dear, could you come help me? I climbed the stairs to find her standing in the bathroom doorway looking helpless. I need to shower, but I'm nervous about slipping. Could you stay nearby, just in case? So, I spent 30 minutes sitting in her bedroom while she showered, available for an emergency that didn't materialize. 30 minutes I couldn't work, couldn't do anything productive, just waiting in case a 72-year-old woman needed help. When Noah came home that evening, he asked how my day was. Difficult. I couldn't get much work done. Your mother needed a lot of help today. She's adjusting. It'll get easier. But it didn't get easier. Each day was the same. Constant interruptions, constant needs. Eleanor's presence permeating every moment, making it impossible to focus, impossible to work, impossible to maintain the careful balance I'd established between motherhood and career. By Friday, I was behind on 2 projects, had canceled a client call because Eleanor had needed help at exactly that time, was barely sleeping, barely eating, barely functioning. And Noah kept saying it was fine. Everything was fine. His mother was settling in nicely. Wasn't Grace doing such a good job taking care of her? Yes, Grace was doing all of it. Grace was drowning under the weight of one more person's needs added to an already impossible load. Grace was disappearing entirely into the role of caretaker, her own identity eroding a little more each day. But no one seemed to notice or care. They were all comfortable, all taken care of, all having their needs met by the invisible woman who kept everything running. And I had no idea how to make it stop. The second week of Eleanor's stay, the house stopped feeling like mine. Small things at first, items moved from where I'd left them. The coffee mugs rearranged in the cabinet in a different order. The living room pillows positioned differently than how I'd placed them. The thermostat adjusted constantly, the temperature fluctuating between too hot and too cold because Eleanor needed it warmer, then cooler, then warmer again. I'd find things in wrong places. My keys not on the hook by the door, but on the kitchen counter. Mail I'd set aside to deal with later mysteriously moved to different surfaces. The remote controls scattered when I'd specifically organized them in the basket on the coffee table. Nothing major, nothing I could point to and say, this is wrong, this is a problem. Just small dislocations that made me feel untethered in my own space, like I was a guest in someone else's home rather than the person who lived here for 4 years. Eleanor had opinions about everything. She never said, "You're doing this wrong," directly. Instead, she'd offer helpful observations that were actually criticisms wrapped in concern. "Oh, you're making chicken again. We had chicken on Monday. I suppose it's fine, though I do worry about variety in a child's diet." "You're letting Mia watch television before lunch? Well, every parent has their own methods, I suppose." The laundry still in the dryer? I was never able to let things sit like that. The wrinkles, you know. But I'm sure you have your system. Each comment landed like a small stone, individually insignificant, collectively building into a wall of judgment that surrounded everything I did. Noah didn't hear it, or didn't register it as criticism. When I tried to mention it, he'd say his mother was just trying to help.
She came from a different generation with different standards. I was being too sensitive. She's adjusting to a new place, Grace. Cut her some slack. But I was the one who needed slack. I was drowning. And instead of relief, I'd been given another person to manage, another voice telling me I wasn't doing enough, doing it right, wasn't meeting the standards expected of me.
My work suffered catastrophically. I missed a deadline for the first time in my career. Had to email the client, a long-term client who'd always been understanding, and ask for an extension. They granted it, but their disappointment was palpable in the response. Professional, polite, and tinged with the kind of doubt that erodes trust. I couldn't explain that I was trying to work while caring for an elderly woman who needed constant attention. Couldn't say that my home office had been taken over and I was now attempting to do creative work at a dining room table in the center of household chaos. Couldn't admit that I was failing at balancing it all because admitting failure felt like confirming what Eleanor already seemed to believe, that I wasn't quite capable enough. The dining room became a nightmare workspace. My computer and supplies spread across one end of the table, constantly having to be pushed aside for meals. Eleanor liked to sit at the other end, doing crossword puzzles or reading, her presence a constant distraction. She'd make small noises, sighs, throat clearing, little mutters when she couldn't figure out a clue, would ask me questions. What's a 5-letter word for ancient Greek marketplace? Starts with A. Would interrupt my concentration to share interesting articles from her magazine. I tried working in the bedroom, but Mia would find me, confused about why Mama was hiding. Tried the living room, but Eleanor would come sit with me, wanting company. There was nowhere in the house that was mine anymore. Nowhere I could close a door and focus. Noah suggested I work in the evenings after everyone was asleep, as if I didn't already work until midnight most nights, trying to catch up. As if I didn't need sleep. As if my time was infinitely flexible and expandable to accommodate everyone else's needs. It's temporary, Grace, just until we figure out Mom's long-term situation. But there was no plan for a long-term situation, no conversations about assisted living or other arrangements, just vague promises that we'd figure something out eventually, while Eleanor settled deeper into our home and our routines and our lives. By the third week, I noticed something strange. Eleanor seemed different when Noah wasn't around. With Noah present, mornings before he left for work, evenings after he returned from work, she was fragile, moved slowly with her cane, needed help with basic tasks, seemed confused by simple things like the television remote she'd used perfectly well the day before. Her hands would shake when she tried to pour coffee. She'd wince, climbing stairs, lean heavily on Noah's arm, let out small pain sounds that brought him rushing to her side. But during the day, when it was just Eleanor and me and Mia, she moved more easily, climbed the stairs without apparent difficulty when she thought I wasn't watching, made herself tea without help, managed the television remote with no problems. Her hands were steady, her movements more confident. I started paying closer attention, testing. One morning, I deliberately didn't offer her to help with something just to see what she'd do. She managed it herself perfectly well. Then, hearing Noah's footsteps on the stairs, immediately resumed her helpless demeanor. It was subtle, so subtle, I questioned whether I was seeing it at all or if exhaustion was making me paranoid. But the pattern repeated. Eleanor capable when alone with me, Eleanor fragile when Noah was present. She needed him to see her as weak, as requiring his protection and care,
as being unable to manage without him. But she needed me to do the actual work of that care, needed me to be the hands and feet and constant availability that made her helplessness possible. I didn't say anything to Noah. What would I say? Your mother is faking how weak she is? Based on what? My feeling that she moved differently when you weren't watching? He'd think I was being cruel, paranoid, looking for reasons to resent his elderly mother. So I said nothing and continued to provide care I increasingly suspected she didn't fully need. The mess in the house reached critical levels. Noah had always been careless about cleaning up after himself, but with his mother present, he seemed to regress to childhood, left his clothes wherever he took them off, draped over chairs, dropped on the bathroom floor, or tossed on the bedroom floor for me to collect, left dishes everywhere, drinking glasses on every surface, dropped mail and newspapers and magazines wherever he finished with them. His mother's presence seemed to give him permission to be even more helpless than usual. She'd pick up after him sometimes, making little indulgent comments about how men are just like this, how they need women to take care of them, how it was a wife's duty to maintain the home. But Eleanor's attempts at tidying were performative and temporary. She'd pick up Noah's coffee mug from the living room and bring it to the kitchen, then leave it on the counter for me to wash. She'd fold a blanket he'd left on the couch, then mention how she couldn't possibly carry the laundry basket upstairs with her bad back. She created the appearance of helping without actually reducing my workload. Sometimes her help made more work. Dishes not rinsed properly, items put away in wrong places that I'd have to reorganize, laundry sorted incorrectly so colors and whites were mixed.
Mia started acting out. She'd always been energetic, but now she was defiant, refusing to eat, throwing tantrums over small things, hitting and biting when she didn't get her way, testing boundaries constantly because the boundaries themselves had become unclear. Eleanor would intervene in ways that undermined my authority. If I said no to something, Eleanor would say, "Oh, just let her have it this once." If I was trying to enforce a consequence, Eleanor would distract Mia with treats or attention. If I was attempting to teach Mia to clean up her toys, Eleanor would tell her, "Grandma will help you," and do most of it herself, preventing Mia from learning responsibility. "You're too strict with her," Eleanor said one afternoon after I'd put Mia in timeout for throwing food. "She's only 3. Children that age don't understand discipline. She needs to learn that actions have consequences. She needs to feel loved and safe. All this strictness just makes children anxious." The implication was clear. I was damaging my child with my parenting. I was too rigid, too harsh, too concerned with rules, unlike Eleanor, who understood what children really needed: unlimited indulgence and no boundaries. Noah, of course, sided with his mother. "Mom raised 3 kids successfully. Maybe we should listen to her advice." "Your mother isn't here all day dealing with the consequences of undermining my authority." "She's not undermining anything. She's being a grandmother. That's what grandparents do, spoil their grandchildren a little." But it wasn't a little. It was constant, and it was making my job as a parent exponentially harder. By the 4th week, I'd stopped sleeping more than 3 or 4 hours a night. Would lie awake with my mind spinning through everything I hadn't done, everything I needed to do, everything that was falling apart. The projects I was behind on, the client relationships I could feel deteriorating, the state of my house, the state of my marriage, the state of my own mental health that was crumbling more each day. I'd get up at 5 hoping to get some work done before everyone else woke up, but Eleanor was often up at 5:30, destroying that small window of quiet productivity. She was a morning person, she'd say, always had been, liked to start her day early. So I'd start even earlier, 4:30, 4, 3:30 on particularly desperate mornings. I was running on caffeine and adrenaline and the grim determination not to fail, not to prove Eleanor right that I couldn't handle this, not to give Noah ammunition to say I wasn't trying hard enough. My body started showing the strain. My hair was falling out in clumps. Not dramatically, but enough that I'd find strands everywhere. On my pillow, in the shower drain, on my clothes. My skin broke out in stress acne. My stomach hurt constantly, a grinding pain that made eating difficult. I lost weight I couldn't afford to lose, my clothes hanging loose, my face gaunt when I glimpsed it in mirrors I mostly avoided. Noah didn't notice, or didn't comment. We barely spoke anymore beyond logistics. Our conversations had been reduced to transactional exchanges. What's for dinner? Can you pick up milk on your way home? Mom needs her prescription refilled. I'll be late tomorrow. Work thing. We hadn't been intimate since before Eleanor arrived. The few times Noah had initiated, I'd been too exhausted, and he'd taken my rejection with visible annoyance. Eventually, he stopped trying. We existed in the same space, slept in the same bed, but the distance between us was vast and growing. Eleanor noticed, made comments about how important it was for married couples to maintain their connection, how a man had needs that shouldn't be neglected, how keeping a husband happy was part of being a good wife. The comments made my skin crawl. The intrusion into my marriage, the outdated gender dynamics, the implication that my exhaustion was a personal failing rather than a response to impossible circumstances. One evening after an especially difficult day, where I'd barely completed any work and had spent hours managing Eleanor's various needs, while also caring for Mia and trying to keep the house from complete chaos, Noah came home late without calling. I'd held dinner, keeping it warm in the oven until it started to dry out. Finally fed Mia and Eleanor at 7, put Mia to bed at 8, cleaned the kitchen while Eleanor watched television. Noah walked in at 8:45, smelling like beer. You ate without me? You didn't call. I didn't know when you'd come home. You told me this morning I might be late. You said might, not that you'd be 3 hours late. He went to the kitchen, examined the dried-out chicken and overcooked vegetables. This looks terrible. Something in me snapped. Then make yourself something else. What's your problem? My problem is that I held dinner for you for hours. My problem is that you couldn't be bothered to call. My problem is that you came home drunk while I've been working nonstop all day. I'm not drunk. I had a couple of beers with coworkers. I'm allowed to have a social life, Grace. When do I get a social life? When do I get to have drinks with coworkers? When do I get 3 hours of freedom? You're home all day. You have freedom.
The laugh that came out of me was ugly. I'm home all day taking care of your mother and our daughter and this house and trying to work and managing every single aspect of our lives while you get to leave every morning and pretend none of this exists. That's not fair. None of this is fair. You brought your mother here without asking me. You promised you'd help, and you don't. You leave me with everything while you live your life exactly as you did before, completely unaffected by any of this. Eleanor appeared in the kitchen doorway, leaning on her cane, looking frail and distressed. Please don't fight. I can't bear it. If I'm causing problems, maybe I should just go back to Spokane. No, Mom, you're not causing problems. Noah shot me a look that clearly communicated this was my fault. Grace is just stressed. Everything's fine. I don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden. You're family. Grace is just having a hard time adjusting. Grace is having a hard time adjusting. Like this was my problem, my inability to adapt, my failure to gracefully absorb one more massive disruption into an already unsustainable life. Eleanor dabbed at her eyes with the tissue she'd pulled from her cardigan pocket. I knew I shouldn't have come. I knew it would be too much. It's not too much, right, Grace? They both looked at me. Noah with warning in his eyes, Eleanor with something I couldn't quite read. Satisfaction, maybe, or calculation. I was cornered. If I continued to express my frustration, I was the villain. The daughter-in-law who made an elderly woman cry. The wife who couldn't handle normal family obligations. the ungrateful woman who couldn't appreciate her husband's devotion to her mother. "It's fine," I heard myself say. "I'm just tired. It's been a long day." We all have long days. That's life. That's being an adult. He made himself a sandwich, ate it standing at the counter while scrolling through his phone, then announced he was going to bed. Eleanor shuffled back to the living room, the sound of her cane on the hardwood floor punctuating each step, slower and more labored than I'd seen her move all day. I stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of another day I survived but not succeeded in. Dirty dishes still waiting despite my earlier cleaning, crumbs on the counter, the dried out dinner I'd carefully prepared now wasted. The mess that was always there, always waiting, always requiring my attention. I cleaned mechanically, washed dishes, wiped surfaces, swept the floor, put away food, made tomorrow's coffee so it would be ready when Eleanor woke at 5:30. When I finally went upstairs, Noah was already asleep. I checked on Mia, curled in her bed with her stuffed bunny, peaceful and innocent. Checked Eleanor's room. Her light was off, door closed, presumably asleep. I stood in the hallway between all these closed doors, these separate worlds, and felt the full weight of my isolation. I was the only one awake, the only one still working, the only one carrying the burden of keeping everyone comfortable and cared for and fed and clean. In my bedroom, I didn't bother changing into pajamas, just laid down on top of the covers, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling, too wired to sleep despite the exhaustion that made my whole body ache. This was unsustainable. I knew it intellectually, knew I couldn't continue like this without breaking completely. But I didn't know how to stop, didn't know how to make anyone understand the weight I was carrying, didn't know how to ask for help when every request was met with defensiveness or dismissal or the suggestion that I just needed to manage my time better. I thought about the woman I'd been 5 years ago, before marriage, before motherhood, before this slow erosion of everything I was into nothing but function. She had ambitions, plans, a thriving freelance business with prestigious clients and creative projects she was proud of, a social life, hobbies, time to read and think and exist as a complete person rather than a collection of tasks and obligations. I couldn't even remember what it felt like to be her. That version of myself was so distant, she might as well have been a different person entirely. This Grace, the one lying exhausted in the dark while her family slept peacefully, oblivious to her suffering, was someone I didn't recognize, someone I never intended to become, someone who was disappearing more and more every day, eroding like a shoreline under constant waves, losing pieces of herself until eventually there'd be nothing left but empty space where a person used to be. I closed my eyes against the tears that were useless anyway. Crying didn't change anything, didn't make anyone care more or help more or see me more clearly. It just made me weaker, more tired, less able to face tomorrow. So I stopped the tears, forced them back, forced myself to breathe, forced myself to accept that this was my life now, and there was no rescue coming, no sudden awakening of empathy from Noah, no miraculous improvement in Eleanor's condition that would allow her to live independently. Just this, day after day, week after week, an endless present tense of serving everyone else while disappearing into nothing. I must have fallen asleep eventually because I woke to sunlight and the alarm and Eleanor's voice calling from downstairs. Grace, Grace dear, could you help me with something? I pushed myself up, put my feet on the floor, Started another day exactly like yesterday. Because that's what I did, what I'd always done, what I'd keep doing until something broke. And something was going to break. I could feel it, the tension building, the unsustainability of this life reaching a critical point. I just didn't know what would break first, the situation, the marriage, or me.
December came with early darkness and relentless rain that turned Seattle gray and cold. The house felt smaller somehow, the walls pressing in as we all spent more time trapped inside together. Eleanor had been living with us for 6 weeks. 6 weeks that felt like 6 months. 6 weeks during which I'd lost 12 pounds I didn't have to lose, missed 4 deadlines, and developed a tremor in my hands that wouldn't go away. The tremor started in my right hand first. Small at first, a slight shake when I held my coffee cup, a wobble when I tried to use my mouse for detailed design work. Then it spread. Both hands now. Constant. Visible enough that clients on video calls sometimes asked if I was okay, if my connection was unstable, why the camera kept shaking. It wasn't the camera, it was me. My body registering the stress my mind kept trying to ignore. I was sitting at the dining room table trying to work on a logo redesign when Eleanor came downstairs mid-morning, moving with that careful, pained slowness she used when she wanted attention. "Grace, dear, I need to ask you something." I saved my work without looking up. "What do you need?" "I've been thinking about my medical care. Dr. Patterson in Spokane has been my physician for 20 years. I'm not comfortable establishing care with someone new at my age. I have an appointment coming up in 2 weeks." My hand stilled on the keyboard. "An appointment in Spokane?" "Yes, just a regular checkup, routine blood work, prescription renewals, but I'll need someone to drive me. It's too far for me to manage alone." 5 hours each way. 10 hours total. An entire day, maybe 2 with the appointment itself. That's a long drive. Can't you see someone local? At my age, with my conditions, it takes months to get established with a new doctor. And Dr. Patterson knows my history. I trust him. Surely you understand how important that is. Her tone was gentle, reasonable, making my hesitation seem unreasonable by comparison. "I have work deadlines." "I know you're busy, dear. If it's too much trouble, I can look into medical transport services. They're quite expensive on a fixed income, but I'll manage somehow." The guilt landed exactly where she intended. I was being selfish, prioritizing work over an elderly woman's health needs. "Let me check my calendar. Maybe I can rearrange some things." "Oh, would you? That would be such a relief. I do worry about my health at my age. Missing appointments can be quite serious." I spent the afternoon reorganizing my work schedule, pushing deadlines, canceling a client call I'd spent weeks arranging, all to accommodate a trip I suspected wasn't truly necessary, but couldn't refuse without seeming cruel. That evening, I mentioned it to Noah. "Your mother needs me to drive her to Spokane for a doctor's appointment." "Spokane? That's far. Can't she see someone here?" "That's what I asked. She says she needs her regular doctor." Noah frowned. "I guess that makes sense. She's had the same doctor for years. Continuity of care is important at her age." "It's an entire day lost, more with the driving." "I know it's an inconvenience, but she's my mother. We need to help her." An inconvenience, like it was a minor disruption rather than another massive burden added to my already impossible load. "Can you take the day off work to watch Mia?" "I'll try. I have that project review meeting, but maybe I can reschedule." "Maybe. not yes, not I'll make it work because this is important, just maybe, which meant probably not, which meant I'd be scrambling to find childcare on top of everything else. The next 2 weeks passed in the blur of work and caregiving and constant low-level panic about everything I wasn't accomplishing. Eleanor's needs seemed to multiply. She needed help with laundry, with cleaning her room, with organizing her medications, needed companionship because she was lonely, needed me to make specific meals that required special ingredients and extra preparation time. Each request was small individually. Collectively, they consumed hours of every day. I started noticing strange inconsistencies, small things that didn't quite add up. Eleanor would claim she couldn't manage the stairs alone, needed my help getting up and down, but I'd twice seen her climb them easily when she thought I was in another part of the house. Seen her move quickly, confidently, without the cane she used constantly when Noah or I were watching. She'd ask me to open jars she claimed were too difficult for her arthritic hands. But I'd find those same jars opened later, sitting on the counter, the lids loose. Had she opened them herself, or was someone else helping her when I wasn't around? Her confusion about the television remote was selective. Some days she needed me to show her which buttons to press multiple times. Other days I'd come downstairs to find her watching her programs perfectly well, navigating channels and volume without any difficulty. The pattern was subtle. So subtle I questioned whether I was actually seeing it or if exhaustion was making me paranoid, reading intention into random incidents, creating conspiracies out of ordinary elder confusion. But the feeling persisted, the sense that something wasn't right, that Eleanor's helplessness had a performative quality that shifted depending on her audience. With Noah, she was fragile, trembling hands, slow movements, frequent winces of pain. She'd struggle with simple tasks until he rushed to help her, his concern visible and genuine. With me, alone, she was different, more capable, more demanding, less grateful for help, and more critical of how that help was provided. I mentioned it to Noah one evening after a particularly difficult day. "Have you noticed your mother seems more capable when you're not around?" He looked up from his phone, confused. "What do you mean?" "She needs help with everything when you're home, but during the day, she manages things more independently." "That's good, isn't it? That she's getting more comfortable here?" "I guess it just seems inconsistent. She's probably more relaxed during the day, less self-conscious. With me, she might feel like she needs to admit when she's struggling. With you, she's trying not to be a burden." His explanation was reasonable, made sense, made my observations seem like I was looking for problems where none existed. "Maybe," I said, but I didn't believe it. Something in my gut told me the reality was more complex, that Eleanor was playing different roles for different audiences, that her helplessness was strategic rather than genuine. I had no proof, just a feeling, just the accumulated weight of small inconsistencies that I couldn't articulate without sounding paranoid or resentful. The day of the Spokane appointment arrived. Noah had managed to take the day off to watch Mia, though he complained about the timing and how it would affect his project deadline. I loaded Eleanor into the car at 6:30 in the morning. She'd packed a large bag with snacks, the medication, reading material, extra sweaters in case she got cold. The bag was heavy. I lifted it into the trunk, feeling my back protest. The drive was long. Eleanor wanted to talk constantly, filling the silence with stories I'd heard before. Observations about the scenery, questions about my work that felt less like genuine interest and more like polite performance. "You work so hard, dear. I do admire that about you. Though I wonder sometimes if you're neglecting other aspects of your life. A woman needs balance, you know. Career is important, but so is family. So is home."
The implicit criticism wrapped in compliment. My dedication to work framed as a failing rather than necessity. We arrived in Spokane around 11:30. The appointment was at 1. Eleanor wanted to stop for lunch first at a restaurant she remembered from years ago. We should eat after the appointment. We don't have much time. But I need to eat before my noon medication, dear. Didn't I mention that? It has to be taken with food or it upsets my stomach terribly. She hadn't mentioned it, but now we were detouring, adding time to an already long day, ensuring I'd get home even later than planned. The restaurant was crowded. We waited 20 minutes for a table. Eleanor ordered slowly, asked the server multiple questions, sent her water back because it wasn't cold enough, ate at a pace that made me anxious watching the clock. We arrived at Dr. Patterson's office at 1:15, late, despite my best efforts. The waiting room was small and outdated, filled with elderly patients and outdated magazines. We waited 40 minutes past our scheduled time before Eleanor was called back. "Why don't you come with me?" she suggested. "Dr. Patterson likes to have family present." I followed her into the exam room, sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair while the nurse took Eleanor's vitals. Dr. Patterson arrived, eventually, an older man with kind eyes who clearly knew Eleanor well. He asked routine questions, checked her blood pressure, her heart rate, her reflexes. Everything seemed normal, perfectly ordinary. Nothing that couldn't have been handled by a local doctor. "How are you managing in Seattle, Eleanor? Adjusting well to living with family?" "Oh, it's wonderful. Grace here takes such good care of me. Drives me to appointments, helps with my medication, makes sure I'm eating properly. I'm very fortunate." She smiled at me warmly. Dr. Patterson smiled too, nodding approval. "Family support is so important at your age. You're lucky to have such a devoted daughter-in-law." I felt like a fraud, sitting there receiving praise for care I provided resentfully, while Eleanor painted a picture of devoted family harmony that bore little resemblance to reality. Dr. Patterson renewed her prescriptions, ordered routine blood work, scheduled her next appointment for 3 months. 3 months. She'd expect me to drive her again in 3 months. Another lost day, another disruption, another 10 hours in the car for a 15-minute appointment that could happen anywhere.
We left the office around 3, started the long drive home in afternoon traffic that added time to an already exhausting trip. Eleanor dozed in the passenger seat. I drove in silence, hands gripping the wheel, trying to stay alert despite the exhaustion that made my eyes burn. We didn't get home until after 10. The house was a disaster. Toys everywhere, dishes piled in the sink, evidence of Noah and Mia's day scattered across every surface. Noah was on the couch watching television. He looked up when we entered. "You're back. How'd it go?" "Fine, just routine." "Good. I'm exhausted. Mia was wild today. I don't know how you do this every day." He said it like a compliment, like acknowledging my daily experience absolved him from participating in it. Then he disappeared upstairs to bed, leaving me with Eleanor to help settle and a house to clean and the crushing awareness that I'd lost an entire day for an appointment that accomplished nothing. I helped Eleanor upstairs, got her situated, came back down to face the mess. Started cleaning because leaving it would mean facing it tomorrow on top of everything else. It was past midnight when I finally climbed the stairs. Noah was asleep, Mia was asleep, Eleanor was asleep. The whole house peaceful and quiet while I remained awake, wired with exhaustion and resentment. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning with questions I couldn't answer. Why had that appointment require me specifically? Why couldn't Eleanor use a local doctor? Why did everything about her care require maximum disruption to my life? The questions had no satisfying answers, just more questions, more doubts, More of that gnawing feeling that something was wrong beneath the surface of ordinary family obligation. But I had no proof, no evidence, nothing concrete I could point to and say, this is the problem, this is what's happening. Just exhaustion, just resentment, just the slow erosion of everything I was into nothing but service and obligation and invisible labor that no one appreciated or even noticed. I fell asleep eventually, knowing I'd wake in a few hours to start another day exactly like this one. And the day after that, and the day after that. An endless succession of days where I disappeared a little more, questioned my own perceptions a little more, lost myself a little more to the demands of everyone around me. Until I wasn't sure anymore what was real and what was paranoia, what was genuine need and what was manipulation, what was my responsibility and what was exploitation. The lines had blurred completely, and I was drowning in the space between them, unable to see clearly anymore, unable to trust even my own observations about the reality I was living. January arrived with snow that made Seattle feel even more isolated and suffocating. The house was constantly cold because Eleanor needed it warm, then too hot because she changed her mind, then cold again. The thermostat became another battleground I fought silently, adjusting temperatures multiple times a day while my heating bill climbed to amounts we couldn't afford. I was barely sleeping anymore. 3 hours a night if I was lucky, sometimes less. My body had stopped registering exhaustion as a temporary state and accepted it as permanent condition. I moved through days in a haze, my vision slightly blurred, my thoughts fragmented, my hands shaking constantly now. The tremor had worsened, both hands, all the time, made design work nearly impossible. I'd have to redo mouse movements multiple times, my shaking hands unable to execute precise selections. Clients were noticing. One had asked directly if everything was okay. I'd lied and said I was fine. I wasn't fine. I was disintegrating. My hair continued falling out. Not just strands now, but clumps. I'd find them on my pillow, in the shower drain, stuck to my clothes. There were visible thin patches at my temples. I started wearing my hair pulled back tightly to hide the loss, which only made it fall out faster. My stomach hurt constantly, a grinding, burning pain that made eating difficult. I'd lost more weight, my clothes hung off me, my face was gaunt, my collarbones jutting out sharply, my wrists so thin they looked breakable. I looked sick. I was sick. But there was no time to see a doctor, no money to spare for appointments about my own health when Eleanor required constant medical attention. The house had descended into permanent chaos. I couldn't keep up anymore, couldn't maintain the facade of order and cleanliness I'd always managed before. Laundry piled up for days, dishes filled the sink and overflowed onto counters. Toys covered every surface. The floors were sticky, the bathrooms filthy, the windows streaked with grime. Noah's mess had reached astonishing levels. He'd completely stopped putting anything away. Clothes dropped wherever he took them off, in the bathroom, the bedroom, the hallway, the living room. I'd find his socks under the couch, his shirts draped over chairs, his pants in a heap by the front door. He left dishes everywhere, on the coffee table, the end tables, the kitchen counter, his nightstand, glasses with inch-deep remnants of drinks growing mold, plates with dried food crusted on them, silverware scattered across surfaces like he'd thrown them randomly and walked away. He left cabinet doors open, drawers pulled out, lights on in every room, water running in the bathroom, the refrigerator door not quite closed so everything inside grew warm. It was like living with a particularly destructive child, except this child was a grown man who should know better and simply didn't care. I'd stopped asking him to clean up after himself. The requests went ignored. The promises to do better lasted hours at most. It was easier to just do it myself than to fight about it constantly.
Easier. That word had lost all meaning. Nothing was easy anymore. Mia had become almost feral. At 3 years old, she was testing every boundary, pushing every limit, and finding that most boundaries had dissolved because I didn't have the energy to enforce them anymore. She refused to eat what I made, demanding specific foods that required special trips to the store I didn't have time for. She threw tantrums that lasted hours, screaming, hitting, throwing things. She wouldn't get dressed without a fight, wouldn't brush her teeth, wouldn't pick up her toys, wouldn't do anything I asked without resistance that left me hollowed out and defeated. Noah did nothing to help with discipline, would undermine me constantly, saying yes when I'd said no, giving her treats when I denied them, letting her stay up late when I was trying to enforce a bedtime. He played with her sometimes, brief moments of engagement where he'd chase her around the living room or build blocks with her or read her a story. Then his attention would drift. He'd pull out his phone. She'd wander away. The interaction would end with no clear conclusion, leaving her dysregulated and me to manage the aftermath. He never dealt with the difficult parts, never handled meltdowns or discipline or the exhausting work of teaching a small human how to be a person. That was all mine. Bath time, bedtime, wake-ups in the night, meals, clothes, emotional regulation, teaching moments, conflict resolution, everything that required patience or consistency or actual parenting, all mine. Eleanor's demands had intensified. She needed more help now than when she'd first arrived, or claimed to need more help. I couldn't tell anymore where genuine need ended and manipulation began. She called for me constantly throughout the day, from upstairs, from her room, from the bathroom. Grace, Grace, dear, could you come help me? A dozen times, 20 times. So often I stopped counting. Could I help her find her reading glasses? They were on the table beside her. Could I adjust her pillows? She just adjusted them herself an hour ago. Could I make her tea? The kettle was right there in the kitchen where she'd made tea herself yesterday when she thought I wasn't watching. Could I help her with the television remote? The same remote she used perfectly well last night. Each request pulled me away from work, from Mia, from the endless household tasks that never got finished, because I was constantly being interrupted to help Eleanor with things I increasingly suspected she could do herself. She'd started coming to me with problems about Noah, small complaints she'd phrase as concerns. Noah seems stressed lately. I worry about him. He works so hard. Noah mentioned you two have been arguing. That must be difficult for him. Noah says you're not spending much time together anymore. Marriage requires attention, you know. Every comment positioned Noah as the victim and me as the source of problems. She never said it directly, never made explicit accusations, just planted seeds of doubt, gentle observations that accumulated into an indictment of my failures as a wife. I was failing as a wife, as a mother, as a professional, as a housekeeper, as a daughter-in-law. I was failing at everything simultaneously, spread so thin I was transparent, barely existing anymore. Work had become nearly impossible. I was behind on every project, had lost 2 clients who'd finally lost patience with my missed deadlines and poor communication, had others who were clearly considering leaving, their emails growing shorter and less friendly. The money was drying up. My income had dropped by more than half. We were surviving on Noah's salary alone, which wasn't enough. Bills were piling up, the credit card balances climbing, collection notices arriving for accounts I couldn't pay. I sat at the dining room table at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday in late January, trying to finish a project that was already a week overdue. My hands shook so badly I could barely control the mouse. My eyes burned from staring at the screen. My head pounded with a headache that had lasted 3 days. Eleanor called down from upstairs. "Grace, are you still awake, dear? I can't sleep. Could you make me some warm milk?" I closed my eyes, breathed, tried to find some reserve of patience that wasn't there. Went upstairs to make Eleanor warm milk at 3 in the morning because refusing would make me the cruel daughter-in-law who denied an elderly woman basic comfort. She was sitting up in bed, reading glasses on, book in hand, didn't look like someone who couldn't sleep, looked perfectly comfortable and alert. "Thank you, dear. You're so good to me. I don't know what I'd do without you." I went back downstairs, back to work, made it another 20 minutes before Mia woke crying from a nightmare. Went to her, soothed her, lay with her until she fell back asleep, 45 minutes gone. Returned to my computer, worked until 5:30 when my alarm went off, had accomplished maybe 2 hours of actual productive work. The day began. The routine that had become mechanical and joyless. Get Mia up, feed everyone breakfast, clean up after everyone, give Eleanor her medications, help her dress, make her specific breakfast that required ingredients I'd run out of, necessitating a trip to the store with a cranky toddler at 7 in the morning. The grocery store trip took 2 hours because Mia had a meltdown in the cereal aisle, screaming, throwing herself on the floor, hitting me when I tried to pick her up, other shoppers staring with judgment and pity, me holding it together by sheer force of will, getting what I needed, dragging my screaming child to the car. Home by 9:30. Eleanor needed help with something, then something else, then something else. Mia needed lunch, needed to be cleaned up after throwing her food, needed to go down for a nap that took an hour of fighting to achieve. I sat down at my computer at 1 o'clock, managed 30 minutes before Eleanor called for me again. This was my life. Every single day. A cycle of interrupted work and endless demands and tasks that multiplied faster than I could complete them. That afternoon, while Eleanor napped and Mia was finally asleep, I found myself in Eleanor's bathroom retrieving her laundry, saw her medications lined up on the counter, noticed something I hadn't before. The bottles were from different pharmacies, 3 different pharmacies across Seattle. Same medication, different sources. Why would she use multiple pharmacies? I picked up one bottle, looked at the label, filled 2 weeks ago at a pharmacy in Capitol Hill. I picked up another, same medication, different dosage, filled at a pharmacy in Ballard 3 weeks ago. This didn't make sense. Why would she have the same medication in different dosages from different pharmacies? I went to her nightstand, opened the drawer carefully, quietly, knowing this was a violation of her privacy, but unable to stop myself. Found folders, medical files, appointment cards, insurance statements. Started going through them. Appointments with Dr. Sarah Chen, internal medicine, Capitol Hill, monthly appointments for the past 3 months. Appointments with Dr. Michael Rodriguez, cardiology, Ballard, every 6 weeks. Appointments with a rheumatologist in Fremont, a neurologist in Queen Anne, specialists scattered across Seattle, all seeing Eleanor regularly, all within the time frame she'd been living with us, none of which I'd taken her to, none of which she'd mentioned. I pulled out my phone, started photographing the documents with shaking hands, page after page of appointments, prescriptions, test results, medical bills. Found a calendar tucked in the back of the folder, Eleanor's handwriting, neat and precise, appointments marked clearly, doctor names, times, locations, all local, all manageable without help, all scheduled during hours when I was home working or dealing with Mia. The trips to Spokane had been unnecessary, completely unnecessary. She had established comprehensive local care, had been managing that care independently while insisting she couldn't possibly see local doctors, while making me drive 10 hours round trip for appointments that didn't need to happen. I kept searching, found receipts for taxi services, multiple taxi receipts over the past 2 months, pickups from our address, drop-offs at medical offices, pharmacies, even a coffee shop downtown. She'd been leaving the house regularly, going out alone, managing perfectly well without any help. The helplessness was a lie. The fragility was performance. The constant needs and demands were manufactured to keep me trapped, exhausted, failing at everything. My legs felt weak. I sat down heavily on the stairs. She was right. Noah was already questioning my perception of reality, already dismissing my concerns as stress and paranoia. The medical records I'd found would be explained away as private care I hadn't needed to know about. The taxi receipts as her trying not to burden me. Everything twisted into reasonable explanations that made me look irrational for questioning them. "What do you want?" I asked quietly. "I want my son to be happy, to have the life he deserves. And that doesn't include a wife who can't keep up, who resents his family, who puts her career above her responsibilities." "You want me gone." "I want what's best for Noah. If you happen to realize you're not capable of being what he needs, well, that would be unfortunate, but perhaps for the best." She moved past me up the stairs, climbing easily without her cane, without any sign of difficulty or pain. The helpless elderly woman completely dropped now that we both knew the truth. I sat on the stairs for a long time after she'd gone to her room. Sat there while my world reorganized itself around this new understanding. Eleanor had been waging a careful, calculated campaign to destroy me, to make me feel so thoroughly that Noah would see me as inadequate, would question his choice in marrying me, would eventually be receptive to the idea that maybe I wasn't the right partner after all. And Noah had been helping her without knowing it, defending her, dismissing my concerns, seeing my exhaustion as personal failing rather than the natural result of impossible circumstances. I was trapped between them, the manipulative mother-in-law and the oblivious husband, being slowly crushed, my life systematically dismantled, with no way to prove what was happening that wouldn't make me look exactly as Eleanor wanted me to look. Paranoid, unstable, resentful. Mia started crying upstairs, awake from her nap, needing me. I pushed myself up, climbed the stairs on legs that felt disconnected from my body, went to my daughter who needed comfort while my hands shook and my chest felt tight and my mind spun with the impossibility of my situation. I knew the truth now, knew exactly what Eleanor was doing and why. But knowing changed nothing. The trap was perfect. The manipulation so careful that exposing it would only make me look worse. I was still drowning, still failing, still disappearing. Now I just knew it was intentional, that I'd been pushed under and held there by someone who wanted me gone, and I had no idea how to save myself. I waited 3 days before showing Noah the evidence. 3 days of carrying the weight of what I knew while pretending everything was normal. 3 days of serving Eleanor, caring for Mia, cleaning the house, working on projects I could barely focus on. 3 days of watching Eleanor perform her helplessness for Noah while moving freely when he wasn't watching. Of listening to her gentle comments that poisoned him against me. Of feeling the trap tighten around my throat until I could barely breathe. I needed time to organize the proof, to photograph every document, every receipt, every appointment card, to create a timeline that showed the pattern clearly, to build a case so airtight that even Noah couldn't dismiss it. I worked on it late at night after everyone was asleep, my laptop screen the only light in the dark kitchen, organizing files, cross-referencing dates, building a presentation that showed exactly what Eleanor had been doing. The evidence was damning, irrefutable. Appointments with multiple local doctors on days she'd claimed she couldn't be too weak to leave the house. Taxi receipts showing trips across Seattle while she had insisted she couldn't manage without my help. Prescriptions filled at different pharmacies for medications she'd claimed she could only get from Dr. Patterson in Spokane. A complete medical care system she'd established and maintained independently while making me believe she was helpless. I had documentation of every lie, every manipulation, every manufactured crisis that pulled me away from work or sleep or the few moments of peace I might have had. It was all there, clear and undeniable. On Thursday evening, after Mia was in bed and Eleanor had retired to her room, I asked Noah if we could talk. He looked up from his phone with visible reluctance. We'd been avoiding real conversations for weeks. Our interactions had become purely transactional, stripped of anything resembling emotional connection. Can it wait? I'm tired. It's important. Something in my tone made him put down his phone. He followed me to the dining room where I'd set up my laptop. What's this about? Your mother. I need to show you something. His expression immediately closed off, defensive before I'd even begun. Grace, if this is more complaints about Mom, just look, please. I opened the first file, started walking him through the evidence methodically. The appointment records showing Eleanor had established care with local doctors, the taxi receipts proving she'd been leaving the house independently, the prescriptions from multiple Seattle pharmacies, the calendar in her own handwriting documenting a complete medical care system I'd known nothing about. Watched silently. His face was unreadable.
I showed him the dates, pointed out how they corresponded with days Eleanor had claimed to be too weak to manage, days she'd insisted she needed me to drive her to Spokane, days she'd called me away from work repeatedly for help with tasks she'd apparently been managing alone just fine. She's been lying, Noah, about everything. About needing Dr. Patterson, about being unable to see local doctors, about being too helpless to manage her own appointments. She's been maintaining a completely independent life while making me think she was dependent on me for everything. I showed him more. The medical bills for procedures I'd never taken her to, insurance statements for appointments that had happened while I was home working, while she'd been out with taxi services I'd known nothing about. Look at this. She had an appointment with the cardiologist in Ballard on the same day she made me drive her to Spokane for what she said was a critical checkup with Dr. Patterson. She saw 2 doctors in one day, Noah, and she didn't tell me about either one truthfully. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the screen, his jaw working like he was chewing on something difficult. Where did you get these documents? From her room. I found them while I was getting her laundry. So you went through her private belongings without permission. That was his response. Not shock at the evidence, not anger at his mother's deception, just accusation that I'd violated her privacy. I found them by accident. And then, yes, I looked through them because something didn't make sense. And I was right. She's been lying to us, Noah. Systematically. For months. These could be explained. How? How do you explain multiple local doctors she never mentioned while insisting she could only see Dr. Patterson? How do you explain taxi receipts for appointments she claimed she couldn't manage alone? How do you explain prescriptions from different pharmacies for the same medications? Maybe she was establishing backup care, like she said before. That's not unreasonable at her age. Then why lie about it? Why make me drive to Spokane 3 times for unnecessary appointments when she had perfectly good doctors here? Why create all this extra complexity and disruption unless the point was the disruption itself? He stood up, walked to the window, stood with his back to me. You've been under a lot of stress, Grace. I know taking care of Mom on top of everything else has been hard. This isn't about stress. This is about your mother deliberately sabotaging me. Making my work impossible, creating constant demands she didn't actually need met, lying about her capabilities to keep me trapped and exhausted and failing. Listen to yourself. You're talking about my elderly mother like she's some kind of villain, like she's been running some conspiracy against you. That's not rational. Look at the evidence. It's all right there, documented, proven.
Evidence you got by invading her privacy. Evidence that could be interpreted multiple ways. Evidence that doesn't prove some elaborate scheme, just that mom has been managing some of her own medical care without bothering you with every detail. He was doing exactly what Eleanor had predicted. Dismissing the evidence, reframing it as reasonable behavior I was misinterpreting through the lens of stress and paranoia. Noah, please, I need you to really look at this, to see what's been happening. Your mother has been systematically destroying my life, making me fail at work, undermining my parenting, creating impossible situations, and then positioning herself as the victim when I can't keep up. Why would she do that? What possible reason would my mother have to sabotage you? Because she doesn't think I'm good enough for you. She told me that directly. Said you could have done better, that I'm not what you need. He turned to face me. His expression was a mixture of frustration and something that looked almost like pity. When did she supposedly say this? 2 days ago? When I confronted her with the medical records. So you confronted my elderly mother with accusations of lying, showed her that you've been going through her private documents, and then you're surprised she said something defensive. Grace, can you hear how this sounds? I know how it sounds, but it's the truth. She admitted it, Noah. Admitted she's been lying. Admitted she thinks I'm inadequate. Admitted she wants me gone. I think you misunderstood. I didn't misunderstand anything. She was very clear. She's been running a campaign to make me fail so thoroughly that you'd eventually realize you made a mistake marrying me. Noah rubbed his face with both hands. When he spoke, his voice was tired. I think you need help, Grace. Professional help. This level of paranoia isn't normal. Creating elaborate theories about my mother's intentions, going through her private belongings, confronting her with accusations, this isn't healthy behavior. The words landed like a physical blow. He thought I was crazy, unstable, having some kind of breakdown that was causing me to see conspiracies where none existed. I'm not paranoid. I'm showing you proof. You're showing me documents you obtained inappropriately and interpreting them in the worst possible light. That's confirmation bias, not proof. Noah, I think you should talk to someone. A therapist. Someone who can help you work through this stress you're under. Help you develop better coping mechanisms than accusing my mother of deliberately sabotaging you.
He was serious, genuinely believed I was the problem, that my perception of reality was compromised by stress and exhaustion to the point where I was creating paranoid fantasies about an elderly woman. Eleanor had won. Completely and totally won. She'd constructed the trap so perfectly that the evidence of her deception could be reframed as proof of my instability. You don't believe me. I believe you're struggling. I believe you're overwhelmed. I believe you need support. But no, I don't believe my mother has been running some calculated campaign to destroy you. That's not who she is. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking again. My chest felt tight. What if I told you I can't do this anymore? Can't live like this? Then we'll figure something out. Maybe mom needs to look at assisted living options. Maybe we need to hire some help. Maybe you need to cut back on work for a while and focus on your health. We have options, Grace, but you need to be reasonable about this. Reasonable. I needed to be reasonable about having my entire life systematically dismantled by his mother while he defended her and suggested I seek psychiatric help? I stood up, walked out of the dining room, went upstairs to our bedroom and closed the door. Sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, feeling something inside me crack and break apart. He didn't believe me, wouldn't believe me, would always choose his mother over me, would always interpret her actions in the most charitable light and mine in the most damning. I was alone in this, completely alone, trapped in a house with a woman who wanted me gone and the husband who'd help her achieve that goal without ever understanding his role in it. The next morning, Eleanor came downstairs earlier than usual, found me in the kitchen making coffee with mechanical movements, my body going through routines while my mind was somewhere far away. "Good morning, dear. Did you sleep well?" I didn't answer, didn't look at her, poured coffee and moved to leave. "Noah told me about your concerns last night, about the medical documents you found." I stopped, turned to face her. She looked worried, concerned. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. "I'm so sorry if I've caused you any distress, Grace. I had no idea you were feeling so overwhelmed. I've been trying to be independent, to manage some things on my own so I wouldn't burden you, and clearly I should have communicated that better." The performance was flawless. She'd reframed everything. The deception became consideration, the lies became poor communication. She was the unmisunderstood mother-in-law trying to be helpful, and I was the unstable daughter-in-law having a breakdown. Noah thinks it might help if we all sat down together, talk things through, made sure everyone's on the same page about my care needs and what support you can realistically provide. Will that be all right with you? She was offering me an out, a way to back down gracefully, to accept her narrative and move forward pretending the confrontation had never happened, to return to the status quo where she controlled everything and I slowly disappeared under the weight of it all. I also want you to know that if you need time for yourself to rest and recover from this stress you're under, I completely understand. Noah and I can manage things here for a while. You should take care of yourself, dear. Your health is important. The suggestion was pointed. I should remove myself, take a break, admit I couldn't handle things, confirm the narrative she'd been building that I was inadequate, unstable, unable to cope with normal family responsibilities. I set down my coffee cup carefully. When I spoke, my voice sounded distant, even to my own ears. I need to make a phone call. I went upstairs, closed the bedroom door, called my sister Lauren. Lauren lived 2 hours away in Portland. She divorced her husband 3 years ago, was raising her daughter Emma alone, working as a nurse and managing her life with a competence I'd once had and lost somewhere along the way. We hadn't talked much lately. I'd been too exhausted, too ashamed of my situation to reach out, but she was the only person I could think of who might understand, who might help. She answered on the third ring. "Grace, everything okay?" I opened my mouth to say yes, everything's fine, just calling to check in, the lie I'd been telling everyone for months. Instead, what came out was the truth. "No, nothing's okay. I need help." The story spilled out. Everything. Eleanor's arrival, the constant demands, the deterioration of my work, my marriage, my health, the evidence I'd found, Noah's refusal to believe me, the trap I was caught in with no way out. Lauren listened without interrupting. When I finally stopped talking, there was silence on the line for a long moment. "Come here." "What?" "Pack a bag, get Mia, come to Portland, stay with me for a while." "I can't just leave." "Yes, you can. You absolutely can. Grace, listen to yourself. You sound broken. You need to get out of that house before there's nothing left of you."
Noah will never agree, so don't ask permission. Just come. Take a few days. Get some distance. Figure out what you want to do from here. But you can't keep living like this. It's destroying you.
We left, drove out of the driveway, down the street, out of the neighborhood, onto the highway heading south. I called Noah from the car. He answered, sounding distracted. Hey, can I call you back? I'm in the middle of something. I'm taking Mia to Lawrence for a while, in Portland. We're already on the road. Silence. Then, what? Why? I need space, distance, time to think. Grace, you can't just... I can. I am. I'll call you when we get there. How long are you planning to be gone? I don't know. This is ridiculous. You're running away instead of dealing with things like an adult. I'm dealing with things the only way I know how, by removing myself from a situation that's destroying me. My mother is going to be devastated. Of course. His first thought was his mother, not me, not our daughter, not our marriage. His mother's feelings. I have to go. I'm driving. I hung up before he could say more, turned off my phone, focused on the road. The drive to Portland took 2 hours. 2 hours of highway and rain and Mia singing to herself in the back seat and my mind spinning with everything I'd left behind and everything I was driving toward. Lauren's house was small and warm and cluttered in the way homes with children always are. She opened the door and pulled me into a hug before I could say anything. Held me while I stood stiff and frozen, unable to cry, unable to feel anything but numb exhaustion. You're here. You made it. It's okay now. But it wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. I'd left my home, my husband, my life, had run away, like Noah said, had proven Eleanor right that I couldn't cope. Emma appeared, 10 years old and curious, taking Mia by the hands and leading her to her room to show her toys. Lauren guided me to the couch, made me tea I didn't drink, sat beside me while I stared at nothing. Tell me what you need. I didn't know. Didn't know what I needed or wanted or what would happen next. Didn't know if I'd go back or stay gone or how to even begin untangling the mess my life had become. I just need to not be there for a while. I need to sleep, to think, to exist without being needed by everyone every second. Then that's what you'll do. Stay as long as you want. Emma loves having Mia here. I'm working nights this week, so I'll be around during the day. You can rest, heal, figure things out. Over the next days, I did nothing. Slept for hours at a time, woke disoriented and hollow, watched Lauren care for Mia with an ease I'd lost, playing with her and feeding her and managing her tantrums without falling apart. I tried to work but couldn't focus. Opened my laptop and stared at the screen until my eyes blurred, closed it again without accomplishing anything. Noah called repeatedly, left voicemails that progressed from confused to angry to concerned. Texts that asked when I was coming home, what I was doing, whether I'd lost my mind completely. I didn't respond, didn't have words to explain what I was feeling or not feeling, didn't have energy to defend my choices or explain my reasons. Eleanor didn't call, didn't send messages. Her silence was louder than Noah's demands. A week passed, then 2. I existed in Lauren's guest room like a ghost, present but not participating, alive but not living.
Lauren never pushed, never demanded answers or timelines, just kept the house running, kept me happy and occupied, let me float through days with no purpose or direction. One evening, after the girls were asleep, Lauren sat beside me on the couch with 2 glasses of wine. "You don't have to go back, you know." I looked at her. She held my gaze steadily. "If you want to leave him, leave that whole situation, you can. You can stay here, regroup, file for a divorce, start over. I did it. It's hard, but it's possible." "He thinks I'm crazy, unstable, having some kind of breakdown." "Are you?" "I don't know. Maybe. Everything feels unreal, like I'm watching my life from outside it." That's dissociation. It's what happens when reality becomes unbearable. Your mind creates distance as protection. "So I am having a breakdown." "You're having a normal response to an abnormal situation. There's a difference." I sipped the wine. It was the first alcohol I'd had in months. It burned going down and settled warm in my empty stomach. "I don't know how to go back to being the person I was before all this." "Maybe you can't. Maybe you don't want to. That person accepted treatment you shouldn't have accepted, stayed silent when she should have screamed, believed she had to carry everything alone. So, who am I now?" Someone who walked away. Someone who chose herself even when it was hard, even when everyone told her she was wrong. But I didn't feel like someone who chose anything. I felt like someone who fled, who given up, who had abandoned her marriage and her home because she couldn't handle the pressure.
Another week passed, 3 weeks total since I'd left. Noah's calls became less frequent, his messages shorter. He'd stopped asking when I was coming home and started making statements about what would happen if I didn't. "We need to talk about what this means for our marriage. You can't just run away from problems. Mom is asking about you. She's worried." That last one was almost funny. Eleanor worried. Eleanor, who'd orchestrated this entire situation, who was probably celebrating my absence, who had Noah all to herself now, no inconvenient wife around to contradict her narrative. I should have felt angry, should have felt something, but there was just numbness, just the hollow awareness that something fundamental had broken inside me, and I didn't know if it could be fixed. Lauren had to work a double shift one evening, left me alone with both girls. I fed them dinner, chicken nuggets and fruit, the kind of easy meal I judged other mothers for serving before I understood how judgment was a luxury of those who weren't drowning. Put them to bed, read stories, sang songs, went through routines that felt familiar and foreign at the same time. Afterward, I sat in Lauren's living room in the quiet house and pulled out my phone. Scrolled through messages from Noah, read them all chronologically, watching the progression from confusion to anger to what looked almost like fear. Found one from 3 days ago. "We need to figure this out, Grace. I miss you. Mia needs her mother. Please come home so we can talk." He missed me. After weeks of silence punctuated by accusations and demands, he missed me. But did he miss Grace? Or did he miss the function I performed? The cooking and cleaning and childcare and emotional labor that made his life comfortable? Did he miss his wife or his unpaid servant? I didn't know. Wasn't sure it mattered anymore. I had been breaking for months, slowly fracturing under pressure that never stopped. And the final break, when it came, wasn't dramatic or visible. I didn't scream or throw things or have some kind of spectacular collapse. I just stopped. Stopped trying, stopped caring,
stopped fighting, stopped being Grace entirely, and became something else, something hollow and mechanical that went through motions without feeling them, that existed without living, that breathed without wanting to. A month after leaving, I sat in Lauren's kitchen while she drank coffee before her shift, and I stared at nothing. And she asked the question directly, "Are you going back?" I opened my mouth to say I didn't know, to say maybe, to say I needed more time. Instead, I heard myself say, no. The word hung in the air between us. Final. Definitive. The first clear choice I'd made in longer than I could remember. Okay, Lauren said simply. Then we figure out next steps. Lawyer, custody arrangements, financial stuff. One thing at a time. You're not alone in this. But I was alone. Would always be alone now in a way I'd never experienced before. Not the desperate lonely of being married and isolated. Something different. Something that felt almost like freedom. Except I was too broken to feel free. I called Noah that evening. He answered immediately. "Grace, finally. Are you ready to come home?" "No, I'm not coming back, Noah. I want a divorce." Silence on his end. Long enough that I checked to see if the call had dropped. "You can't be serious." "I am. I can't do this anymore. I can't be married to you. I can't live in that house. I can't exist in that situation." "This is insane. You're throwing away our marriage because of some paranoid conspiracy theory about my mother?" "I'm ending our marriage because it was already over. Because you chose your mother over me. Because you never saw me as a partner, just someone who was supposed to make your life easier. Because I've been disappearing for months and you never noticed or cared." "That's not true." "It is true. And I'm done. Done trying to convince you. Done trying to be enough. Done sacrificing everything for people who won't sacrifice anything for me. I'm done, Noah." "What about Mia? You're going to take her away from her father?" "You're barely her father. You're a man who lives in the same house as his daughter. That's not the same thing." "You're not thinking clearly. This stress, this breakdown you're having." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. I'm finally seeing everything exactly as it is. And I'm choosing to leave." "My lawyer will destroy you in divorce court. You abandoned your family, left the state with my daughter without permission. You'll be lucky to get supervised visitation." The threats were empty, desperate. The last weapon of someone losing control. "Get whatever lawyer you want. I'm staying in Portland, filing here. Mia staying with me. You can have visitation if you want it. Somehow I doubt you'll make the effort." I hung up before he could respond. Turned off my phone. Sat in the dark living room while the girls slept peacefully upstairs, and my marriage ended 2 hours away without any fanfare or ceremony. Just a decision. Final and irreversible. The numbness persisted. Weeks turned into months. I existed in Lauren's house like a permanent guest, sharing space, but not really participating in life. Going through motions because bodies require motion to survive. I barely worked anymore, had lost most of my clients, couldn't focus long enough to complete projects. Money was non-existent. I was living on Lauren's charity, sleeping in her guest room, contributing nothing, being nothing. Mia adjusted surprisingly well. She missed her father in the abstract way children miss things, asking about him occasionally, but mostly content with her new life, with Aunt Lauren and Cousin Emma. She seemed calmer here, less anxious, like she'd been absorbing the tension our old house and could finally breathe without it. I should have felt something about that. Relief that she was okay, guilt that I'd taken her from her father, something. But there was just the numbness. Just the hollow awareness that I was technically alive, but not really living. Noah filed for divorce first, beat me to it by 3 days. His petition painted me as an unstable mother who'd kidnapped his daughter, abandoned the marriage without cause, refused to communicate or cohabitate, requested full custody with supervised visitation for me. Lauren's lawyer friend looked over the documents, said most of it was bluster, scare tactics, that family courts in Oregon would consider the circumstances, would see I'd been the primary caregiver, would grant me substantial custody time. I signed papers, attended hearings over video call, watched my marriage dissolve in legal language and procedural steps. Felt nothing about any of it. Eleanor never appeared in any of the proceedings, never testified, never involved herself directly. She'd achieved what she wanted, me gone. She could afford to be magnanimous now, invisible, letting Noah fight battles she'd already won. The divorce finalized in July, 6 months after I'd left Seattle. I got primary custody of Mia, with Noah having visitation every other weekend and alternating holidays. The house went to him. What little assets we had were split. I owed nothing and received nothing, beyond child support that barely covered Mia's basic needs. I was free, legally, completely free from Noah and Eleanor and that suffocating house and that impossible life. But I didn't feel free. I felt empty, hollowed out, a shell that walked and talked and went through necessary motions but contained nothing substantial inside. Lauren noticed, suggested therapy, gently, carefully, without pressure. I went, sat in a small office and talked to a kind woman about trauma and exhaustion and psychological abuse and dissociation. She used words like depression and PTSD, suggested medication, gave me exercises for grounding and presence. I took the medication, did the exercises, kept showing up to appointments even though I felt no different, no better, no more present in my own life. Months passed, a year. I got a part-time job at a print shop, mindless work that required no creativity or emotional investment, just technical tasks I could perform mechanically. Moved out of Lauren's guest room into a tiny apartment nearby. 2 bedrooms, barely big enough for the secondhand furniture I'd acquired. Mia and me in a space that was ours, that no one invaded or controlled or filled with demands. Noah exercised his visitation exactly twice. Both times he showed up late, stayed briefly, seemed uncomfortable and distracted. Then the visit stopped. He sent child support checks irregularly, called Mia on her birthday and Christmas, otherwise disappeared from her life with the same ease he'd disappeared from mine when I was still living with him. Mia stopped asking about him, started calling Lauren's house home, thrived in the stability and calm and space to just be a child without absorbing adult tensions. I should have felt triumph, should have felt vindicated. Eleanor was right that I wasn't good enough for Noah, but also Noah hadn't been good enough for me. We'd both been right and wrong in ways that destroyed us both. But there was still just the numbness. Just the mechanical existence of someone going through necessary motions while the person inside
remained dormant, hibernating, possibly gone entirely. 2 years after leaving Seattle, I stood in my small kitchen making dinner for Mia, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt anything real. Couldn't remember joy, or sadness, or anger, or hope. Just endless, flat neutrality, interrupted by nothing. This was what surviving looked like when you'd lost yourself completely in the process. When you'd been broken so thoroughly that the pieces couldn't be reassembled into anything resembling the original person. I'd escaped. I'd survived. I'd built a small, quiet life that was stable and safe and completely devoid of the chaos and manipulation and demands that had destroyed me. But I'd left Grace behind in that house in Seattle. The real Grace. The person I'd been before marriage and motherhood and Eleanor and the slow erosion of everything I was. She was gone. Maybe permanently, maybe irretrievably. What remained was this hollow version, this ghost, this mechanical function that cared for Mia and showed up to work and paid bills and existed but didn't live.
Some nights, after Mia was asleep, I'd sit in the dark and try to remember what it felt like to be whole, to have dreams and desires and a sense of self that extended beyond basic survival. I couldn't remember, couldn't access those feelings anymore. They'd been scraped away, layer by layer, until nothing remained but this empty shell. And I didn't know if I'd ever find them again. Didn't know if healing was possible or if I'd exist like this forever, technically alive but fundamentally absent, a person-shaped space where Grace used to be. The therapist said healing takes time, said I'd been through severe psychological trauma and recovering wasn't linear, said some days would be harder than others, but progress was happening even when I couldn't feel it. I wanted to believe her, wanted to have hope that someday I'd feel like myself again, that the numbness would lift and real emotions would return. Over the months that followed, I slowly began to reclaim pieces of myself. Therapy, routine, and the calm space with Mia allowed me to breathe again, to feel again, to make decisions not dictated by fear or manipulation. With the divorce finalized, Mia and I settled into our own apartment in Portland. Noah had almost disappeared from our lives, and Eleanor finally faced the consequences of her schemes. I was no longer broken. Life was still hard, but I could breathe. Mia was happy and safe, and I was reclaiming my identity, no longer an overburdened wife, no longer a submissive daughter-in-law, no longer a victim. Eleanor had tried to destroy me, but I was the one who came out victorious. Grace was back,